out with a debate. That's fine. That's great. That clears the air. When people debate these things, it shows that they care. And they can resolve it, and they can reach some kind of solution. Okay? And I'm going to get to your question now.
Okay, when you start to train yourself as a public speaker, does it help to speak on a different subject, or is it better to concentrate on something you know well, or something you like well, or I don't know, maybe your work or your hobby, but do not speak about some subject from different sphere?
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
when you practice, when you start to practice.
Well, the best way to learn something is to teach it. So if you want to learn something, just teach it. Now, I met Svetlana last week about this time, right? Just a little over 1 week ago, I met Svetlana, and for some reason it just popped into my head that I would do a presentation on public speaking. And up until about 5 days ago, I thought, well, okay, I'll do something. I put everything together within the last 24 hours, came up with all these slides, okay? But I did it partly to challenge myself, because, to be honest, I've never talked about public speaking before. Okay? Really? I've never talked about it before. I mean, I've had like a discussion over at the Australian Council for 30 minutes, but nothing like this. All this information and everything I'm telling you, I've never told anybody before, because it's not my expertise. My expertise is psychotherapy. So I put myself in a situation of getting up in front of a group of very intelligent people and talking about something that I've never talked about, but something that I know about because I've done it a lot. Okay? Like, for example, some of you, you know, maybe you drive a car. You've probably never given a presentation on driving, but you could stand up in front of a group and probably do a presentation because you've been driving for a few years. Okay? So this is really the first time I've actually talked to a group like this and done a presentation like this. But to answer your question, I think it's a really good thing to do. That if you want to learn about something, do a presentation. Put some pressure on yourself. And in that way, you can learn something new about life that you didn't know before. And believe me, a lot of stuff, you know, I've learned some things in the last 48 hours putting this presentation together. Stuff that was in the back of my mind, but I wasn't quite able to articulate it. All right. Yeah.
Quick question. Who are the best speakers you have heard in your life, and why?
Well, you know, I think Barack Obama, when he's on his game, he can be as good as anybody. Barack Obama, if you want to listen to some of his speeches, he did a speech in Cairo that I thought was terrific. He did a speech in Philadelphia just prior to winning the nomination that was tremendous. He's given some great speeches. He is a very articulate speech maker. He is very, very good. And he writes his own. I think he's an intelligent man. And I think he's just gifted. I think in order to rise to that level politically in the United States, you have to be a very communicative person. You have to be able to do that. Yeah, and Bush was not a good speech maker. You're absolutely right. If you put the two side by side, there's no comparison. Okay? Bush used a teleprompter exclusively, and you know what a teleprompter is, right? It's the same. He's just reading off a teleprompter, okay? Bush won the presidency for totally different reasons than Barack Obama did, okay?
Do you think that Barack Obama does his speeches on his own?
He writes most of his speeches. He has two guys that help him out. Two guys. He's got what we call an alter ego. There's two guys that know him so well that they help him put it together, but he's the architect, the primary architect of his speech. And of course, writing skills are incredibly important, okay, but his speeches are usually quite good. Listen to his Nobel Prize speech. You might disagree with it, but his Nobel Prize speech I thought was right on target. And he delivered it very, very well. And he was very humble when he accepted this prize, because he told the audience himself that, hey, this should have gone to somebody else. Okay, this, you know, I'm at the beginning of my career. Why are you giving me this prize now?
Yeah.
All right? Give it to me in 20 years when I've actually done something. Is basically what he said. Okay? All right? So Barack Obama is quite a very good speech maker, and unfortunately, there was probably another very good speech maker, but his ideas were horrible, and who would that be? Hitler. Adolf Hitler was, he gave a different kind of speech, but very, very passionate, powerful speech. And he probably needed to be that way to sell the Germans on some of his ideas, which were catastrophic for the German nation as well as the Jewish population. All right?
Do you hear the speech of our president, Yanukovych?
Well, you know, I wouldn't necessarily call it a speech, but I'll tell you what. Yulia Tymoshenko does a pretty good job. Yulia Tymoshenko is an articulate, powerful speaker. You should invite her to Toastmasters. Or maybe you guys could go to where she is.
She's busy now.
Yeah, she's a little bit busy now, but she would be, she's actually quite gifted. And again, it's charisma that you're looking for. Charisma. And some people have it, some people don't. All right? One more question, I guess? Yeah.
You said that the first 3 or 5 minutes is important time for making good impression on the audience. What are you doing about during these 3-5 minutes? Maybe you have some secret to have good impression.
Well, you know, I think it's a combination of telling the audience something about yourself, telling the audience what they're going to learn, telling the audience why it's important, letting the audience know that they're special and important to you, that you want to do a good job, and sometimes even asking the audience for help. Okay? There's nothing wrong with asking the audience for help and saying, look, we're in this together. And again, because I'm primarily speaking with social work students and psychology students, that is what they're supposed to be doing with their life. And unfortunately, it's amazing how few of these psychology students actually show a lot of empathy towards me. And I'm thinking, God, you know, what kind of, you know, I'm thinking this, I'm not saying it, but some of the students I've had, I think, God, I would not want to be your client or your patient based on the way you're treating me as a teacher. You're showing no empathy whatsoever. Okay? But yeah, I think you got to win them over. Smiling never hurts. Being somewhat self-confident, not being arrogant, not speaking down. I think looking reasonably well-dressed. I know that in Ukraine, people respect a person who's well-dressed. I couldn't find my tie. I should have worn a tie today. I couldn't find one. I couldn't get into Mike's closet to get one.
You got one tie.
Okay. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's going to certainly be one of the keys. Those first 5 minutes, okay? And that's the same with when you meet somebody on a date. Okay, that's why we have speed dating now. All right? Most people think that in the first 3 to 5 minutes they can make a general estimation about the person they're with. They can generally figure out if this person is safe or unsafe or somebody that I want to spend time with or not. Okay? So first impressions are quite important in life in general, whether it's giving a speech or whether it's meeting somebody on a date. So I've got a lot of more information, but I think we're going to have to wrap it up.
Your presentation, your speech
Okay.
was awfully good.
Oh,
Awfully good, yeah. This is to you. Really, thank you on behalf of our club and on behalf of the audience for your presentation.
Well, you guys
for
were
your
a good audience.
thought-provoking and inspiring and informative presentation.
Thank you for having me. And
By the way, would you like to know whether you managed to impress us or just waste our time?
I was wasting your time, right? No, you guys, and like I said, if you learned a couple new things,
Just wait. Dear friends, now you have opportunity to practice public speaking, to use all these tips which were mentioned tonight, and just feel free to practice your English. The floor is given to you. You are welcome to give brief feedback your impressions, what you think about tonight's masterclass. Irina, would you like to give a brief
I'm very thankful